Hey guys, and welcome back to Speak Freely. Here we celebrate the freedom of speech, and today we're returning to Dr. Peterson because I just cannot get enough of the guy. And he is going to be speaking with the author of Woke Racism. They're going to be asking the question, are all white people racist? So get ready to be before you do. If you like this type of videos, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell to get notifications when I do upload. All of that really does help with the algorithm, guys. And if you'd like to support this channel further, you can donate. My PayPal and Cash App link is in the description box below, and also in the comment section. Of course it helps, but you don't have to. You can just like, comment, and subscribe. Another great way to support this channel is join my brand new merch shop. Links down below, and all the links to the alternate platforms I'm on, my socials, and all the ways to support me is always in the links down below. Other than that, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. All right, here we go.
So I've been considering this proposition that's emerged from the woke end of the political spectrum. Let's say that all white people are racist, and I think, okay, are all white people racist? What's the answer to that? And the answer is yes, and no, and how dare you frame the question like that? That's the three answers. So yes, let's look at yes first. Well, are all people racist? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Like, we have really intense in-group affiliative tendencies.
And yet we're supposed to suppose that maybe especially North American white people can learn to not be racist, unlike all other people in the world. That's a tough proposition.
Well, all of us, it's very difficult for all of us to overcome our in-group biases. And we never even want to do it completely because we want to love our family specially. And we also only have a limited amount of time and attention. So we have to love some people specially or do nothing at all for anyone. So this is a huge problem. So by stating it that way, that all white people are racist, you make racism a subcategory of white, and you actually underplay the terrible catastrophe and significance of the problem. And that's very dangerous because we all have to contend with this in-group preference and our proclivity to demonize anyone we put in the out-group. And that's a terrible tendency.
Yeah, and that question is one of them where I depart from what I wish were my comrades, in that are all white people racist? You know what? Probably to some extent. The white person who couldn't have an ounce of racism identified in them, even with sophisticated psychological testing, is probably vanishingly rare. Sure. And my sense of it is, when it's gotten to the point that it has, who cares? And I've often said to audiences, and I've watched some Black people in audiences, having not heard this, understand what I mean. If you really do have a basic self-love, then the fact that the whites around you have various degrees of racism really just shouldn't matter, because life consists of about 1,000 things other than whatever that residual racism is in that white person across the room who is, married to a Black person and, does all the sorts of things that these supposedly racist but hyper woke white people do. It's just, why does it matter so much? Now, it's one thing for somebody in 1925 to talk about white racism. 1955, 65. But today, my feeling about it is, with most of the white people that a Black person who talks about that sort of thing most knows, the answer is yes. Most of the white people you know are probably very slightly racist, but not in any way that will remotely matter in your life, even including being friends with them and sometimes close friends. Why are we so obsessed with that? And I think that's a very legitimate question. Life is about so much more than obsessing over something like that, except that when you obsess over something like that, you're part of a group. It's us versus them. And you have a sense of purpose and a sense of virtue because you're the person who's being racist. But I find that a rather feeble way of going about an existence with true virtue. I've never used that word so much as today.
It might also...
Stopping it there. Okay. I slightly disagree, but hear me out. It could just be a word thing, and I think I did this in Dr. Peterson's other video. I forgot what it was, but the happiness thing, and I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting joy, but I think because we live in a society where of junk values, a lot of people's happiness sort of derive from material possessions and money and sort of feeble things that don't really matter. However, I understood what he meant. It could just be a word thing, right? So I don't necessarily think all people are racist. I think most people have biases and prejudice, which usually come from or derive from lived experiences, and that is just human nature. Now, I could be completely wrong. I think that's what they mean, and maybe they really just think it's all an umbrella term. This is racism. Racism is bias and prejudices, or they just literally mean racism. I'm not sure. My definition of racism, and I'll put it on the screen so I can in real time prove myself right and wrong. My definition of racism is someone who thinks that they are better than someone simply because they are a different race, or a different race is lower than them or deserve less rights or some harm done to them. That's my idea of racism. I don't think everyone wants harm done to someone simply because of their race. I don't think everybody thinks they're better than someone because of their race, or someone's lower than lower than them because of their race, or don't deserve equal rights because of their race. I don't think everybody's like that, but I do think it is human nature to build biases and prejudice throughout lived experiences. For example, if you are a child and every time you went outside, some crazy person in a purple hat tried to punch you in the face. It is throughout your whole childhood, it was this crazy person in your neighborhood with a purple hat that kept trying to punch you in your face. You might grow up to have a slight bias of people wearing purple hats or purple hats in general because it's through lived experience. Women who have bad experience with men usually might grow up with some bias or prejudice against men, vice versa, and the same thing with men with women. If someone harmed you in some way and they happen to be black, white, or Asian, you might grow up with a bias or a prejudice against that race. Now, as you become an adult and you evolve as a human being, you try to unlearn those biases and prejudice, realizing just because some bad men or a man did harm to you does not mean all men are bad, vice versa with men and women. And just because someone hurt you of a certain race doesn't mean that everybody of that certain race are bad or harmful. You try to unlearn these things as you go older, but it is human nature to have build biases and prejudices. So it's not really fair to just only put it on white people to unlearn those biases or prejudices. But I don't think people that's a part of this woke crowd actually think bias and prejudice. I think they think true racism, as in you think you're better than, you think we are less than, you think we deserve less rights, you want to do some harm to us. And to put that all on white people, that harmful idea that is who they are just simply because they are born, is saying they are born less empathetic, they are born violent, they are born wishing to do harm on someone simply because of their race. That is just not factually true, and just awful to say and blanket a whole race with that sort of idea, right? I also agree that it's human nature for most of us to have some in-group biases, but I think depending on the human being or individual, how far that goes. Like Dr. Jordan Peterson said, he mentioned family. You can have in-group biases with family, and some people have no in-group biases with their family at all, because some people have terrible families and they create their family outside of their biological family. But then you create your family and then you have in-group bias within that family. Some individuals are tribalists, meaning that they need to belong to some sort of tribe or some sort of community, and they're willing to adapt whatever narrative or ideology they have to stay a part of that tribe or community. I think there's differences between a tribe and community. I think tribes can become very toxic and dangerous, and community is usually more loving and helpful. If you're an individualist, you usually have less urge for that. Most individualists will not drop all their values and their ideas or adopt another ideology just to belong to a tribe, because they're kind of okay with being alone and sort of having their own belief system without needing someone else to confirm it to them. It doesn't mean that individualists cannot belong to a community of anything like that, like we're like all asshole hermits, but it just means when you're individualist, you're less likely to just do whatever it takes to belong to some sort of tribe or group, right? And I do agree that when you have these really toxic sort of these tribes that can have in-group biases, they can become very dangerous and toxic to people outside of that group. We've seen it with like mob culture, mob attack culture and stuff like that, usually coming from the left, but it happens on either side. And I also agree that your average racist that really has no power to do anything much to you unless they're actually doing harm to you, but just having a mentality of I'm racist and I don't like black people or I don't like trans people or whatever, most of them keep it to themselves. They just may not be very nice to you, but like, why should that take up so much space in your world where there's so many things there's so many things outside of that make up your life, right? Again, we have a finite time on this planet. Why would I want to spend my time, my life, my mental state, my stress, my emotions on a person who is racist that don't care for me anyway, right? If there's a man on the corner who's racist and someone's like, that guy's racist, I'm not going to go then spend my time and my life trying to boycott him and tell everybody he's racist and ruin his life. I'm going to be like, cool, thanks for letting me know. I'll avoid that guy and I'll move on with my life. But people will spend so much of their precious life on something that doesn't really matter. And I think it's because a lot of people live in an age of validation. They need people to validate themselves back to them. Validate my fatness, validate my blackness, validate my gayness. And it's like, if people don't fuck with you, why are you even wasting your time or your mental energy on them? Just move on with your life and be happy. Unless that person, again, is a judge or a cop or a lawyer or teacher that might be able to, because of their racism or biases, might actually be able to do some harm to you. But if it's like we are average person, like actually who gives a fuck? Like my life is so much more than that. Even like me being black and female is like a tiny percentage of who I am. But I think because a lot of people are part of this woke mob, being black or being female, being trans, being non-binary, it's like everything to them. So any tiny little micro threat to that is like catastrophic to their lives. I remember like a friend one time, she like sent me a picture on Facebook, and it was like, when this whole thing about teenage girls on Instagram like blackfishing and blackfacing and black accenting and, you know, getting really dark tans and dressing urban and stuff like that, and people were getting upset with that. And she was like, what do you think of this? She sent me like a picture of one of them, and I said, I think I will not spend any mental energy thinking about what a teenager, a 16-year-old does in her spare time on Instagram. Why would I spend any mental or emotional energy on what a child is doing on social media? Like, but people see that and they will literally lose their minds over it. And it's like, you're giving this person so much of your energy. You're freely throwing away precious time of your life over someone who's not really doing anything to you. At the end of the day, that teenage girl dressing urban is not going to have really that much effect on your life, of if any. So why are you spending your time even thinking about it? All right, my run is done. We're getting back into the video.
So indicate interference with the process of coming to terms with your own in-group preference and tendency to derogate whatever out-group you happen to be surrounded by. I mean, I do see this as a terribly deep human problem. You know, I presume that in the 1970s that Jane Goodall found that chimps go on raiding parties, right? And that was a major league discovery. It shows how that proclivity to demonize the out-group is at least 6 million years old. Right?
Definitely.
It's deep and it's in us. And so, and we all have to contend with it. And so now we could have an intelligent conversation nonetheless about the manner in which the predominance of one ethnic group in a given society might exacerbate those tendencies.
Of course.
But that's something that's certainly independent of the notion that all white people are racist. Right?
And then you can also see that, you know, it's easy to believe that progress doesn't happen than to admit that it happens slowly. The degree to which most white Americans are racist in 2021, not to mention white Canadians from what I've seen, is much, much smaller than anybody would have expected about 30 years ago. So the question is also just extent. And yet virtue is excellence in my mind. If we're talking about Aristotle, virtue is not moral upstandingness, it's excellence. You can't be excellent. You can't live an excellent life if you're hobbled in distorted views of what racism is and how much it matters. These particular things will not allow you to be the best that you can be, unless you think that the best that you can be is somebody who is hyper articulate about discussing bias against other people. And what a narrow topic. There's so much to do. And so I just chafe against it.
I think that's an excellent place to close, if you don't mind. And I really enjoyed our conversation. It flew by as far as I was concerned.
All right, that's it, guys. That was a short little clip. Again, Dr. Jordan Peterson is the one who edited this clip out of a longer talk, so you can go on his channel if you want to see the whole thing. I believe it's a bit over an hour. They talk about a lot of other different topics. So, like, the idea of, like, this sort of woke group, this woke religion, kind of making it seem like we still live in the 1950s, that your average racist today who might have like a slight racism to them or bias or prejudice is as dangerous or is going to have as an impact in your life that it would have if it was 1920s and 1950s. That is a lot what these progressive woke sort of groups do, like even when it comes like feminism, like women pretending we still live in the 1950s where we have no rights and stuff like that. It's like they have to kind of live there for their ideology to sort of make sense, right? And also they think that only white people can be racist because they believe that they have more power over people of color because they sort of like make it seem like the elite of the group, right? The elites of the West, who might happen to be more white than everyone else, is proof that white people have more power, instead of just seeing it that is the elite. And most white people have nothing to do with the elite. Like, that they happen to maybe be more white, but that doesn't mean that their power is given to all the other whites on the planet, right? And there was another video that I want to watch that talked about like how much of a majority are white people, period, because we keep using this as an idea that they have more power, but white people are very much about to lose that majority. So are we still going to have the same talking points when they're not the majority anymore? You know, they're not the majority of the graduates in universities. They're not being hired as much as people of color anymore. This power that they're talking about, again, is hinges on this idea because the elite, most of the elite people are white. That means white people have more power. No, most white people have nothing to do with the elite groups. And I agree, you cannot be excellent if you're hobbled in this idea of oppression, because again, your idea of oppression comes from like as if we're still living in the 1950s. Therefore, you person won't actually take advantage of all the advantages or privileges you do have to advance your life, because you still think that you're so oppressed that it's impossible for you to do so anyway. So it is sad that people hyper focus on these things, because I tell you, there is so much more to life. Life can be really, really tragic, but life can be really, really beautiful. And if you choose to only focus on the tragic, then that is your decision to make. You are personally making a decision to make your life more horrible than it really has to be by hyper focusing on all the negatives, instead of really appreciating and being grateful and having gratitude for all the positives and privileges that you do have. Anyway guys, that's it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, what Dr. Jordan Peterson said, what the author of Woke Racism said. If anybody read his book or planning on reading this book, let us know how it was in the comment section below. Please comment however you want to comment your opinions on this video in the comment section below. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell to get notifications when I do upload. All of that really does help with the algorithm, guys. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, you can donate. My PayPal me link is in the description box below and also in the comment section. Of course, it helps, but you don't have to. You can just like, comment, subscribe. I also have a second travel vlog channel. I travel as a lifestyle, or I live abroad. If you'd like to know where I am in the world, you can go to the description box below and also in the comment section. Hit the link, go subscribe to my travel vlog channel, and or follow me on my travel Instagram. My stories is usually what's most up to date, and you guys have an amazing day. Bye!